Greetings all, I'm back and today we're going to be doing a shootout between these 5 Sega Genesis and Mega Drive controllers. First off, I wanted to mention this 8bitdo controller I've already done a full review on, so check the link in the description if you want to get in more detail. I won't go in as much detail on this video with it, however I still will touch on it and compare between all the rest. So first up, we have the original Sega branded 6-button controller. We have a Hyperkin Squire. We have the RetroBit controllers, both wired and wireless. These are both licensed by Sega, so that's pretty cool. So that's a good sign right off the bat here. This wireless one actually has LNR on the top, as well as, of course, being the 6-button layout, you have a home button, select. Comes with a cable, 2 dongles, which I'll get into in a minute. And now the packaging. So first, here is the packaging of the Hyperkin Squire controller. Pretty basic, but it has that cool Hyperkin styling with the edge cut off. You can see there's a little bit of a texture right there. Shows you what it's compatible with. Of course, Genesis 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, it is what it is. Not too crazy. Is that right there? 10-foot cable. Once again, a little basic information, promotion, or whatever. Next up, we have the 6-button arcade pad wired version from RetroBit. As you can see, it's licensed by Sega. Once again, I said that's a good sign, and I'll show you that it's definitely worth it. So first off, I love the fact that it's styled just like the original controllers from back in the day. It tells you the colors, Sega Genesis, Sega CD compatibility at the bottom. It's reflective a little bit. The top right there. Same deal on the sides, really. Alright, pretty simple. And then on the back, you have your little promotional stuff, features, whatever. Comes with a 10-foot cable. Yeah, that's basically it for that one. And lastly, here's the wireless version of that RetroBit 6-button controller. 2.4 gigahertz. I can't remember if they have a Bluetooth version or not, but I got this one just because of its versatility. Once again, licensed by Sega. Here's the side. Same deal as the last. Pretty much the same on the back, too. And then here's what it reads if you want to see that. And as far as the 8bitdo box, I don't know where it is. Sorry. So first off, we have the Hyperkin Squire here. This could be had for between 11 and 13 bucks, depending on where you get it. I believe the direct from Hyperkin is 13 bucks, $12.99. It's a pretty solid feeling controller. As far as the contour of it, I've got medium small hands, and it fits my hands pretty well, even though it's a little bit more bulky than your standard Genesis 6-button. On the back, you have your pretty large butt cheeks there. Kind of reminds me of the 3-button Genesis controller, the way it feels on the back. I like the way it curves to your hand, where your fingers are resting up here. The face buttons are a little bit stiff. You could see, hear that hard membrane. That may break in over time, I'm not sure. I've only had this controller for about a week now. But so far it's okay. If you need to tap really fast, like if you're playing, I don't know, something like Mega Man or some kind of shooter or something like that, I mean, you could do it. You know, you could tap pretty fast, but it takes a little more effort. The D-pad feels pretty good. It's fairly clicky. It's not too clicky, not too mushy. For a $12 controller, $13 controller, I really can't complain about how this thing feels. It feels premium. Alright, so here's where things get a little bit more interesting. First up, we have the RetroBit wireless 2.4 gigahertz controller. So first, let's go through what it comes with, how it feels. From the get-go, you get this really cool case that it comes with. Very nice. It comes like this. Comes with two receivers here. You got your USB and you got a Sega Genesis receiver. Pretty neat. Little tab so you can pull it out there. Snap shut. Pretty solid build quality. Alright. So, the controller itself. You have your LNR up here, your 6 buttons, and you have your home and select. This is good for the switch if you're using that right there. Here's the back of it. There's your little battery right there. And as far as feels almost identical to the real thing, the original Genesis controller. The buttons, I can really not tell a difference. If I were to tap on these, very springy, very responsive. If I pull the original out, This could just be due to age. These are a little bit more springy, but at the same time, they have a little more give to them where I can actually tap faster on this, like if I'm playing a shooter or something. Okay. Alright, so next up, as far as the body itself, it's got a slight textured feel, just like the original, matte finish or whatever. The D-pad, when I am pivoting it, believe it or not, feels ever so slightly better than this. This is still a great controller. I love it. Could be due to age once again, but this actually feels a little bit looser and just a tiny bit more mushy. But again, this thing's the OG, and I still have no problems whatsoever with it. This is a little slightly less textured, a little bit more smooth, like around here. But the contours and everything are exactly the same. Yeah, they're almost identical. One other difference here is that you can see here this D-pad has a slight glossy feel to it. Okay, and then you compare it to this, you can easily tell that's more of a matte finish right there. So side by side, it's not a big issue either way. It's just different. So I figured I'd point that out. And here's the way the D-pad sticks up here out of this one, and then this one. So this one's slightly taller, but I actually kind of like that. Alright, so next we have the wired version of that RetroBit controller. As you can see, it comes in blue. It also comes in the original black that looks exactly like this, and I believe it also comes in the transparent black, which is of course like this. So as far as feel goes, once again, feels just about identical. It actually feels closer to the original than the wireless one for some reason, and I'll explain why. So first up, the D-pad right off the bat has a more matte finish compared to the wireless one. I don't know if you see how the light's hitting it there. So this has a more matte finish, much closer to this right here. D-pad still sticks up ever so slightly further than this one. Again, that could be due to age, but I like the way this feels. Once again, I actually prefer the feel of this one actually more than all of these that I've shown you so far. So here's the button response. Pretty much the same as the wireless one. Good membranes, very springy, not mushy at all. The D-pad is that in between, like it's definitely accurate. You could feel every little direction that you're pressing when you're pivoting this. Hyperkin, stuff like that, Shoryuken's very easy with this. And once again, compared to this one, this is ever so slightly more mushy, but again, age. I'm not going to repeat myself again, but yeah, so this one's great too. Between these two, just based on feel, I actually prefer this one just a hair more, only because that matte finish on this D-pad. Other than that, they're pretty much identical. Finally, here is the 8bitdo controller. This is kind of a different beast, yet at the same time, a lot of similarities. First off, this is Bluetooth. You can get this for, I believe, 30 bucks. Has a very good feel. It's almost kind of like a hybrid between a Genesis 6 button and a Saturn Model 2 controller, just the way it feels in the hand. You have your L and R right here. Very responsive buttons. Really premium feels. Pretty lightweight, but not cheap feeling. The D-pad is pretty clicky, not in a bad way. It's one of those happy mediums where it's not too mushy, not too clicky. Feels almost exactly like a real Saturn controller, which I don't have it right now, but I would show you if I did. The matte finish on this and this, exactly the same pretty much, just this has some age to it, but great feeling D-pad. This is one of my favorite controllers I've ever had, honestly. The only deal is, if you're wanting to play this with a Sega Genesis, as opposed to something like a Raspberry Pi, Nintendo Switch, or whatever, you're going to have to shell out $20 more extra if you want a receiver, like say you want a Genesis wireless receiver to use this on. Bluetooth wireless dongle, you just stick it in like you would one of these, and yeah, so that would make this controller a total of like $50 or so. And yeah, it's you're going to pay for it. It's a great controller, but if you did plan on using that, just keep that in mind. Now, one last thing about this wireless controller here, I'm just going to touch on the two wireless receivers. So here's your USB receiver. You just plug it in like anything else, like your flash drive or whatever. It goes in very easily. you see this button will blink, and you just, it's in searching mode basically, and all you would do is just hold start there, and you see that starts to blink. And then it's basically paired. Alright, so, and it's pretty fast, as you can see. It pretty much paired it right away. No real wait time. Last up is the wireless receiver for the Genesis, for the wireless controller. Pairs just fine pretty much instantly, just like you saw with a computer. This is a con though. Watch how this actually inserts. It has a death grip regardless whether you're playing a clone console or the real Genesis. As you can see, I'm having to actually grab this thing and really work it in. You kind of have to wiggle it side to side. And that worries me if I were to, you know, take it in and out a few times. I don't want to break the console, break the ports. And then, same deal if you need to unplug it. You have to be really careful, wiggle it side to side, and it comes out. As you can see, I had to take the thing from my little gaming corner just to demonstrate this. So it's got a very tight feel. It's both a pro and a con. Of course, you have a solid connection, but I'm afraid if I keep unplugging and plugging this, it's going to screw something up. So let's start playing some games, shall we? So first up, we have the Hyperkin Squire. I actually bought 2 of these, and you'll see why here in just a second. Alright, so for player 1, if you watch the cursor here, I'm going to keep my hand in the frame. No problems, right? Just hit Ryu. Alright, now here's the player 2 one. Same controller, same model, whatever. See there, it can be a little more, be a little too sensitive, and it will go diagonal when you don't want it to. And if you look, if you were to, say, you pivot your hand, you see it rocking up and down when you just mean to hit left or right or up or down. So that's annoying. One controller does it, one does not. So just keep that in mind. Your mileage may vary. If it doesn't do this, it's a great controller. Alright, player 1. This is the good controller. I'm Ryu. Alright? And he's only going diagonal, jumping, or whatever when I want him to. Okay? Good stuff. Alright? Let's do some Hadoukens. No misfires. If there is a misfire, it's just my fault, really. But, as you can see, easy peasy. No issues at all. Now let's get to the second Hyperkin controller. So, this one's controlling Ken. If I were to say tap one direction, let's get over here. You saw him duck just now when I was just wanting to go to the left. Alright. And it's kind of fidgety. And you see, once again, if this thing rocks, see, he's jumping over the place. I'm hitting left, but because that D-pad has some rocking going on and the contacts underneath are just so sensitive, he is ducking or jumping when I don't mean to. So let's throw some Hadoukens. Hadoukens are pretty good. Not really having any misfires. But with that little sensitivity issue, you're definitely going to screw up. It still works fine for stuff like Sonic, really any kind of platformer or whatever, but in the character select on this, or really any fighting game, that little issue with this D-pad is going to be annoying. Here's the wired RetroBit controller. As you can see, no cursor issues, nothing like that, no fidgeting. Go ahead and hit Ryu. And let's go ahead and pair this wireless one up. You hit start, and it connected right away, as you can see. Alright, let's start a match. Going back to the wire controller. Directions are fine. Okay. No accidental diagonals or misfires, anything with that. Hit some Hadoukens. Let's throw a fast one. Okay, no issues there. To move on, kick his ass a little bit. Okay, so yeah, no problems there. I really love this one. It feels damn near identical to the original, except I think the D-pad is actually slightly better. So this is probably going to be my main Sega Genesis controller. Alright, so now is the wireless one. First, you're wondering, does it have input lag? Nope. No input lag. No accidental directions or anything like that. And once again, Hyperkin's totally fine. And I actually like the fact that that cable's not in your way too. Just a little more convenient. The only thing is, with this having a 500 milliamp battery, I don't know what it is, but when I was using this thing on my Switch, the battery life just tanked. So if you're using this wirelessly, at least on the Switch, unplug that dongle, even if you're not using it, or else prepare to charge this thing daily, basically. I haven't experienced that on the actual RetroBit console or whatever. I've got it plugged into a Super Retro Trio. So that hasn't been an issue yet, but just keep that in mind. There is a chance that your battery life might not be the best, but so far, at least on this console here, and nothing USB, it works totally fine. Alright, so now that we've touched on pretty much everything, just for the hell of it, I'm going to compare the original versus this RetroBit wired controller. See how they compare against each other. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention. In the Retro Trio console, this damn thing doesn't want to connect. Let's switch to the Genesis. Okay, so it's plugged into the actual Genesis. Let's go ahead and start her up. As you can see, that started just fine with this. So I don't know if it's a Retro Trio issue or if it's just this controller's connections are worn out. But so first, let's start with Ryu. Okay, same thing. Works fine. Alright, let's go to the Genesis controller, because that's what you want to know about, right? How these compare to the real thing. Alright, so here's the Genesis controller. Let's just do some Hyperkins once again. It feels much looser, this D-pad. Your mileage may vary on that, just depending on how much your controller was used, but even though it feels a little worn in, it's not bad at all. It's still a great controller, stood the test of time. Alright, so wrapping it up, what are my overall thoughts? Well, if you're a purist, you've probably already turned the video off by now. But believe it or not, I actually prefer both of these to the original Sega Genesis controller. I love this controller, grew up with it. The nostalgia's there, but I'm sorry, these just feel a little bit better. I mean, I could play with either one any time of the day, but if I had to pick just one, it's going to be this one. Now, it also depends on what you want. If you can afford it and you want that versatility, get one of the wireless controllers, especially this 8bitdo. I would rather use the 8bitdo here than this one, if that tells you anything. This one just feels perfect. It's amazing. But again, you're going to be spending $50 or more just depending on which wireless receivers you want to get, whether you're just getting the Genesis one or a USB one or both. Because this is a base price of $30. If you get those receivers, they're $20 each separately. That aside, this and this are probably tied for number one. I love this controller. I also love this controller. I really can't pick between the two. If I want something wired, though, that'll just work, this one wins. Now, if you're on the budget side, this is still a great controller. You can use this for any game, be just fine. But your mileage may vary, as you saw. I had issues with the D-pad on one of them, and it got pretty annoying, especially if you pick, like, say, Guile in Street Fighter, a charge character or something like that, and you hold this and then do that, you're going to jump almost every time. It's extremely annoying. Now, if you get one that's working, it's awesome. I wouldn't say it's better than, like, one of these or whatever, but for only $11, $12, you really can't go wrong here. Keep that little D-pad issue in mind. What I would do is, if you buy this, I would buy this thing locally, number one. And number two, keep the receipt just in case. And if you're still here by this point, just want to say thank you for watching, and horns up.